Good morning. This is Dr. Marina Paldas, Associate Professor of Department of Industrial Biotechnology. Today, I'm going to talk about transmembrane signaling. So in this topic, we are going to talk about the introduction of transmembrane signaling or signal transduction, definition of this particular way, general features of signal transduction, types of receptors, important pathways of signal transduction in bacteria as well as in plant. So in human body, numerous processes are required for coordinating individual processes to support the body as a whole. So at the cellular level, sensing of environments and cell communication for coordination relies on signal transduction or transmembrane signaling. So the modeling of this process or this system as a self-organizing allows one to explain how equilibria are maintained. So many disease processes such as diabetes, heart diseases arise from defects or dysregulations in these pathways. So this will highlighting the importance of this process in the human biology as well as in medicine. So cell communication occurs through the chemical signal as well as the chemical receptors both. So we can see by two ways, that is a direct contact of molecules on two cell surfaces or releases of a chemical signal which will be recognized by another cell. The cell may be nearby or may be far apart. So there are some examples in this, like we know that hormones are carried by the circulatory system, like through the blood to many sites. So even though the secretory main, the master gland is a pituitary, but it can be controlled the thyroid gland or the adrenal gland, which is located on the kidney. There are so many growth factors are there, which will be released to act on the nearby tissues. And ligands, they are the signals that bind the cell surface receptors as observed within the insulin, like as a ligand, as in the insulin receptor, or that can pass into the cell and bind an internal receptor. So such as the steroid hormones. So the signal transduction or the transmembrane signaling at any process which is occurring within the cells that convert one kind of signal or stimulus into another type. So it is known that the cell signaling or signal transduction in which the transmission of molecular signals from a cell's exterior to its interior, where the cell will be responding. So the signals received by the cells must be transmitted effectively into the cell to ensure an appropriate response. This step is initiated by cell surface receptor, which trigger a biochemical chain of events inside the cell, creating a response. So it is also defined as the ability to a cell to change behavior in response to a receptor-ligand interaction. So the receptor-ligand interaction, nothing but it is a signal. So here we can see that in this image, the ligand is a primary messenger. As the result of binding to the receptor, that ligand, the other molecules are called as a secondary messenger. So they are produced within the target cell. Because in the target cell only the proper specific receptor will be present. So the second messengers relay the signal from one location to the another location, such as we can say that from the plasma membrane to the nucleus, leading to the cascade of events or changes within a cell. So these secondary messengers will be, there are so many molecules will be there. They will be there one array of reactions, and because of that, that will pass to the nucleus where the gene will be expressed with a proper manner. So messenger molecules may be amino acids, maybe peptides, protein, fatty acid, lipids, nucleosides, or nucleotides. So if you see the messenger, there are two types of messengers will be existing. One is hydrophilic messenger, which will bind to the cell membrane receptors. Another one is hydrophobic messenger, which will bind to the intracellular receptor, which regulate expression of the specific gene. But as a whole, the functions will be the same. So a ligand that binds its receptor through a number of specific weak non-covalent bonds by fitting into a specific binding site or pocket. So there will be complementary shape where the receptor will be binding. In situations where even low concentration of a ligand will result in binding of most of the conjugate receptors, the receptor affinity is considered to be high. So the low receptor affinity also occurs when a high concentration of the ligand is required for most receptor to be occupied. So here the dissociation constant Kd is the concentration of the ligand required to occupy one half of the total available receptor. With prolonged exposure to a ligand and occupation of the receptor, cells often become desensitized. So the desensitization of the cell to a ligand depends upon the receptor down regulation, as well as desensitization may lead to tolerance, which is a phenomena that result in the loss of medicinal effectiveness of some medicines that are over-prescribed. So if you come to the definition of the transmembrane signaling or signal transduction, that is a transmission of molecular signal, okay, which is, we have seen that, which is coming from the ligand receptor and ligand between that, and through this it will come to the cell, interior part of the cell, and to the nucleus. So the whole process is called transmembrane signaling or signal transduction. So cells have the ability to respond to the signals generated far from the plasma membrane. So in case of the bacteria, cells have the membrane proteins which is present on the surface of the plasma membrane. The membrane protein analyzes the surrounding environment for pH change, osmotic strength, the availability of the food, oxygen and light, and the presence of harmful chemical also, predators and competitors for food. So a signal is generated for conveying the above information to inside the cell. So the bacteria cell then responds to the information by like moving towards the food or away from the predators, harmful chemicals, or forming spore in nutrient development, depleting environment. So we know that that is called as a chemotaxis. In case of the multicellular organisms, cells performing different functions exchange of a variety of signals. So for example, the plant cells, they respond to the growth hormone as well as the sunlight. So we know that where the light will be there, that is called chemotactic movement. The plant will move towards the light. In animals, this communication takes place in a broader way. So the cells exchange information about the change in the concentration of the ions and glucose in the extracellular fluids in embryo, the correct placement of the cells during the development. So if you see the general features of the signal transduction, we can see that the signal transduction is a very specific and very sensitive for the biochemical process. So a particular type of signal is received by a particular type of receptor only. So I told you that there will be complementary shape. Okay, so the bonding will be complementary binding. The interaction specificity is almost similar to the substrate enzyme interaction or antigen antibody interaction. So it will be just like a lock and key model. And a signal transduction is a very specific and very sensitive biochemical process. So a particular hormone will go to bind to the particular receptor of a cell. So that is called the target cell. Okay, so a particular type of signal is received by a particular type of receptor only. The interaction specificity is almost similar to that of substrate enzyme interaction or antigen antibody reaction. So the sensitivity of the signal transduction sometimes gets modified. So when a signal is present for a longer time, desensitization of the receptor occurs. So when the signal falls below a certain threshold, the receptor becomes sensitive again. So one of the most important features of the signal transduction is integration. Okay, so it is the ability of the system to receive multiple signals and produce a signal response. So how does it occur? This occurs because different pathways converge at different levels. So if you see that the trigger of each signal transduction system is different, but the general features are common to all. So if you see that a signal it interacts with a receptor, the activated receptor, then the receptor is getting activated. The activated receptor interacts with the cellular machinery where there will be the secondary messengers will work. So producing a second signal or changing the activity of cellular protein. So ultimately what will happen, the metabolic activity of the cell undergoes a change and finally the transduction ends. So here you can see that the extracellular signal molecules which will bind to the receptor protein, and after that which will be present on the surface. Then the intracellular signaling proteins will be activated, that is a secondary messenger molecules, and then ultimately it will go and it will change the gene expression and it will be producing the target protein. It may be a metabolic enzyme, it may be a gene regulatory protein, it may be a cytoskeletal protein. So in case of the metabolic enzyme, it will alter the metabolism. And in case of the gene regulatory protein, it will alter the gene expression. In case of the cytoskeletal protein, it will alter the cell shape or cell movement. So we can understand by this that any of the deficiency of this signaling pathway, they'll cause some sort of disease. So the receptors can be roughly divided into two major classes. One is the intracellular receptors, one is the extracellular receptors. So first we'll talk about the extracellular receptors because the variety of the extracellular receptor in our body are much more. So extracellular receptors are integral transmembrane protein and make up most receptors. They span the plasma membrane of the cells with one part of the receptor on the outside the cell and other on the inside. So they will be embedded in the plasma membrane. So signal transduction occurs as a result of a ligand binding to the outside region of the receptor. The ligand does not pass through the membrane. So there are various types of extracellular receptors. So one is G protein coupled receptors, receptor with kinase activity, JAK-STAT signaling pathway, integrin receptor, toll gate receptor, and ligand-gated ion channel receptor. So first we'll talk about that G protein coupled receptors or GPCRS and second messengers. So there are three important components of signal transduction through G protein coupled receptors: a plasma membrane receptor with a 7 transmembrane helical segment and an effector enzyme in the plasma membrane that generates an intracellular second messenger, and a guanosine nucleotide binding protein that activates the effector enzymes. So in case of this receptors, we can see that it is also known as 7 transmembrane domain receptor because it is having the 7 that helical chain. So it is also called 7TM receptors, heptahelical receptors, or G protein linked receptor, GPLR. These constitute a large protein family of receptors that sense molecules outside the cell and activate inside signal transduction pathway. Ultimately, it will produce a cellular responses. So coupling with the G protein, they called 7 transmembrane receptor. Okay, and because they pass through the cell membrane 7 times. So the ligand that bind and activate this receptor, it will include light sensitive compounds, odors, pheromones, and hormones and neurotransmitters. And it will vary in the size from small molecules to the peptide and maybe in a large protein. So the G protein coupled receptors are involved in many diseases, okay, and are also the target approximately 40% of all modern medicinal drugs. So the G protein, they are also known as guanine nucleotide binding protein, are a family of proteins that act as molecular switches inside the cells. They are involved in transmitting signals from a variety of stimuli outside a cell to its intracellular. When they are bound to the GDP, they are on, and when they are bound to GDP, they are called off. So they will be the on-off system, by that the signal will be passing. So G protein belongs to the larger group of enzyme that is called GTPases. There are 2 classes of G protein. The first function as a monomeric small GTPases. The second form and function as heterotrimeric G protein complexes. So the heterotrimeric class of complexes is made up of alpha, beta, and gamma subunits. So the beta and gamma subunits can form a stable dimeric complex referred to as beta-gamma complex, where the alpha subunit dissociates upon activation. So now we'll see the mechanism how it is working. So it is known as the inactivated state when it is bound to a heterotrimeric G protein complex. So binding of an agonist to the GPCRs result in a conformational change in the receptor that is transmitted to the bound G alpha subunit of the heterotrimeric G protein. So the activated G alpha subunit exchange GTP in place of GDP, which in turn triggers the dissociation of the G alpha subunit from the G beta gamma trimer and from the receptor. So the dissociated G alpha as well as G beta gamma subunit interact with other intercellular protein to continue the signaling transduction cascade. So while the free GPCRS is able to rebind to another heterotrimeric G protein to form a new complex that is ready to initiate another round of signal transduction. So there are 2 principal signal transduction pathway which is involving G protein coupled receptors. What is that? First one is the CMP signal pathway. Another one is phosphatidylinositol signal pathway. So they are the secondary messengers. So first we'll talk about the CMP dependent pathway. It is also known as adenylyl cyclase pathway. So here what will happen, the CMP dependent pathway, the activated GS alpha subunit binds to and activate an enzyme called adenylyl cyclase, which in turn catalyzes the conversion of ATP into CMP, that is cyclic adenosine monophosphate. Okay, so increase in the concentration of the second messenger of CMP may lead to the activation of the four things. It may activate the cyclic nucleotide gated ion channels, exchange protein activated by CMP, that is such as the RAPGF3, or poppy domain containing protein like POPGC, or an enzyme called protein kinase A like PK. So the PK enzyme is also known as CMP dependent enzyme because it gets activated only if CMP is present. So one PK is activated. It phosphorylates a number of other protein that may be enzyme that convert glycogen into the glucose which is directly involved in the metabolism. Enzyme that promote the muscle contraction in the heart leading to an increase in heart rate. Another, the transcription factors, okay, which will be regulating the gene expression. So molecules that activate CMP pathway, they include cholera toxin, which will increase the CMP level, caffeine and theophylline that will inhibit the CMP phosphodiesterase, which also degrade the CMP, so thus enabling the higher level of CMP than would otherwise be had. Another one, pertussis toxin, which increases CMP level by inhibiting GI to its GDP. It will make the inactive form, and this leads to an increase in adenylyl cyclase activity, thereby increasing CMP levels, which can lead to an increase in insulin and therefore hypoglycemia. So the deactivation, how it will occur? The GS alpha subunit slowly catalyzes the hydrolysis of GTP to GTP, which will turn it deactivates the GS protein, and it will shutting off the CMP pathway. This pathway may be also be deactivated the downstream by directing inhibiting adenylyl cyclase or dephosphorylating the protein phosphorylated by PK. So the molecules that inhibit the CMP pathway that include CMP phosphodiesterase, which dephosphorylates CMP into AMP, reducing the CMP levels, or the GI protein, which is a G protein that inhibits adenylyl cyclase, reducing the CMP levels. Another one is phosphatidylinositol signal pathway. In this, what will happen? The extracellular signal that will bind to the G protein receptor, that is called GQ, on the cell surface and activate phospholipase C, which is located on the plasma membrane. So here we can see that IP3 that binds with the IP3 receptor in the membrane of the smooth endoplasmic reticulum as well as in the mitochondria and open calcium 2+ channels. So the DAG, it will help activate the protein kinase C, and which phosphorylase many other protein, changing their catalytic activities, leading a cellular response. So the effects of Ca2+ are also significant because it incorporates with the DAG in activating the PKC, as well as it can activate the calcium M kinase pathway, in which calcium modulated protein, that is calmodulin CAM, binds to the Ca2+, undergoes a change in conformation and activates CM kinase. The kinase then phosphorylizes target enzymes, regulating their activities. So the two signaling pathways are connected together by Ca2+ and CM, which is also a regulatory subunit of adenylyl cyclase and phosphodiesterase in the CMP signaling pathway. So when G protein signaling is disrupted, what will happen? So the G protein related diseases are characterized by either deficient or excessive G protein signal transmission. So the which arises through abnormal signal initiation, defective termination, or reduced level of G protein. So this is the three main reasons for this. So the deficient G protein signaling can arise through either reduced level of G protein or through decreased signal initiation. So the diseases which is involving a decrease in the production of the G protein, it includes night blindness, where the mutation in GD protein, a subunit, affect the response of the rod cells of light. Another one is pseudo-hypoparathyroidism, where the genetic loss of the G's protein, a subunit, results in non-responsive to parathyroid hormone. Other abnormalities involve decreased signal initiation through the inability of the G protein to switches to active states like symptoms of whooping cough, that is a pertussis, like hypoglycemia. Excessive G protein signaling also can arise through either increased signal initiation or defective signal termination. So the increased signal initiation occur in testotoxicosis, where a mutation in the receptor for luteinizing hormone can overstimulate G protein, resulting in the excessive production of the testosterone. This is arising from the defective signal termination result from the persistent elevated activity of the downstream effectors such as cholera, the symptoms which results from the action of a bacterial toxin then led to a stimulation of the adrenal cyclase and the subsequent secretion of the salt and water leading to a fatal diarrhea. So to other diseases which involve defective termination through mutation in the G protein that include that adenomas in which the G protein lose their ability to hydrolyze GTP through mutation resulting in the excessive secretion of the growth hormone and the increased proliferation of somatotrophs. Another one is McCune-Albright syndrome, where the scattered regions of the skin hyperpigmentation arise from the hyperfunctioning of one or more endocrine glands. Next one is the receptor tyrosine kinase. So it is a large family of the plasma membrane receptor with intrinsic protein kinase activity. So receptor tyrosine kinase have a ligand which will bind on the domain of the extracellular phase of the plasma membrane and an enzyme active site of the cytoplasmic phase. So insulin regulates both metabolic enzymes and gene expression. So insulin does not enter the cell but initiates a signal that travels a branch pathway from the plasma membrane receptor to insulin enzyme in the cytosol and as well as to the nucleus, where it stimulates the transcription of the specific genes. So the active insulin receptor protein, that is called INSR, consists of two identical alpha subunit protruding from the outer surface of the plasma membrane and two transmembrane beta subunits with their carboxyl termini protruding into the cytosol. So a kinase is a type of enzyme. We know that the transfer phosphate group from high energy donor molecules such as ATP to a specific target molecules like substrate. The process is called phosphorylation. So for every phosphorylation event, there is a phosphatase, an enzyme that can remove phosphate residue and thus modulate that signal. So kinase enzyme that specifically phosphorylate tyrosine amino acid are termed as tyrosine kinase. So here we can see that receptor tyrosine kinase. This is the one type. Another will be the non-receptor tyrosine kinase. So in case of the RTKase, it is a cell surface receptor that also has a tyrosine kinase activity. So the signal binding domain of the receptor tyrosine kinase is on the cell surface, which the tyrosine kinase enzyme activity residue in the cytoplasmic part of the protein. So a transmembrane alpha helix connect these two regions of the receptor. As in the case of the GPRS, protein that bind to the GTP play a major role in the signal transaction from the activated RTKase into the cell. In this case, the G protein are membranes of the RS, RHO and the RAF families, which will be referred collectively as a G protein. So the important groups of the signals that bind to the receptor tyrosine kinases are peptide growth factors like nerve growth factors, NGF, and epidermal growth factor, EGF. Another one is peptide hormone like insulin. So binding of the signal molecules to the extracellular domain of the receptor tyrosine kinase molecules causes two receptor molecules to dimerize. This brings the cytoplasmic tails of the receptor close to each other and causes the tyrosine kinase activity of these tails to be turned on. The activated tails then phosphorylates each other on the several tyrosine residue. This is called autophosphorylation. So the phosphorylation of tyrosine on the receptor tails triggers the assembly of an intracellular signaling complex on the tails. The newly phosphorylated tyrosine serve as a binding site for a variety of signaling protein that will then pass the message on the other protein. So an important protein that is subsequently activated by the signaling complexes on the receptor tyrosine kinases is called RAS. So the RAS protein has the following important features. It is associated with the cytosolic phase of the cytoplasma membrane. It is a monomeric GTP binding protein. In fact, it is also a lot of like alpha subunit trimeric G protein. Just like alpha subunit of a G protein, RAS is active when GTP is bound to it and inactive when GTP is bound to it. Like a subunit, RAS can hydrolyze the GTP to GDP. So this excited signal emitted state is a short-lived. However, because the intrinsic GTPase activity of RAS, it will hydrolyze GTP to GDP, returning the protein to its consequent GDP bound state. So the activated RAS triggers a phosphorylation cascade of the protein kinase, which it distributes as signal. So these protein kinases are members of a group called MAP kinase, that is called mitogen activated protein kinase. Okay, so the final kinase in this cascade phosphorylates various target protein, including transcriptional activators like MYC that regulate gene expression. So ARES is the most commonly mutated proto-oncogene in human tumors. Indeed, approximately 30% of all human tumors contain mutated version of the RAS gene. And the frequency is even higher in some specific cancer like colon cancer, pancreatic cancers. So here we can see that the insulin receptor, it will bind to the receptor and it will undergo the autophosphorylation. And in the second step, we can see that insulin receptor phosphorylate IRS1 on its tyrosine residue. And the third step, we can see that SH2 domain of the GRB binds to the phosphorylated tyrosine of IRS1. Then SOS bind to the GRB2, then to the RS. And it will causing the GTP to release the GTP binding to the RS. Ultimately, it will activate the RSA binds to activate the RF1, and then RF1 phosphorylates activating it, and that MEK, this phosphorylates ERK on a threonine and a tyrosine residue, and ultimately it will activate. And ERK moves into the nucleus and phosphorylates to nuclear transcription factors such as ELK1, and it will activate them. And finally, the phosphorylated ELK1 joined to the SRF to stimulate the transcription and finally translation of a set of genes that we need for cell division. Another type is non-receptor tyrosine kinase, NRTKs. So the non-receptor tyrosine kinases are a subgroup of protein family of tyrosine kinase. This enzyme that can transfer the phosphate group from ATP to a tyrosine residue of a protein. So unlike the receptor tyrosine kinase, the second subgroup of tyrosine kinases, the non-receptor tyrosine kinases are cytoplasmic enzymes. So the NRTKs regulate the cell growth, cell proliferation, differentiation, adhesion, migration, as well as apoptosis, and they are critical components in the regulation of the immune system. So the main function of the NRTKs in their involvement in the signal transduction and initiation of the T cells and B cells of the immune system. So the CD4 and CD8 receptors of T lymphocytes require for the signaling the SRC family membrane LCK. So the SRC, cellular homologue of transforming protein of Rous sarcoma virus, is prototype for an important family of such NRTKs. So SRC contain unique functional regions such as SRC homology 2 or SRC homology 3. So the SH2 domain typically bind to the receptor, which will be phosphorylated by another kinase, allowing the aggregation of multiple enzymes, where the SH3 domain mediates that protein-protein interactions. Now we'll talk about the JAK-STAT signaling pathway. So the JAK-STAT pathway is a system that regulates the formation of erythrocyte in mammals. So this signal for this system is erythroprotein. It is a 165 amino acid protein which will be produced by the kidneys. So the JAK-STAT signaling pathway transmits information from chemical signal outside the cell through the cell membrane and into the gene promoters on the DNA inside the nucleus, which causes the DNA transcription and activity inside the cell. So the JAK-STAT system is a major signaling alternative to the secondary messenger, and it is an example of NRTK. So the JAK-STAT system consists of the three main components: a receptor, definitely, Janus kinase, that's what it is called JAK, and the signal transducer and activator of transcription, that is called STAT. So as a whole, it is called JAK-STAT pathway. So many JAK-STAT pathways are expressed in white blood cells and are therefore involved in regulating of the immune system. So how it is working? The binding of the ligand to the receptor triggers activation of the JAKs. So enzyme first will get activated. With the increased kinase activity, they phosphorylate tyrosine residue on the receptor and create sites for interaction with proteins that contain phosphotyrosine binding SH2 domain. So STATs processing SH2 domain capable of binding this phosphotyrosine residue are recruited to the receptors and are themselves tyrosine phosphorylated by JAKs. So this phosphotyrosine then act as a binding site for SH2 domain of the other STATs, and it will mediate their dimerization. So different STATs form hetero or homodimers. So the activated STAT dimers accumulated in the cell nucleus and activate transcription factors which will target the genes. So the JAK-STAT pathway mutations are associated with many hematological malignancies caused by gaining constitutive functions like myeloproliferative neoplasms, multiple myelomas, etc. Next signaling pathways is integrins. So integrins are produced by a wide variety of cells. They play a role in cell attachment to other cells and the extracellular matrix, as well as in the transduction of the signals from the extracellular matrix components such as fibronectin or collagen. So the ligand binding to the extracellular domain of the integrin changes the protein conformation, clustering it at the cell membrane to initiate signal transduction. So the integrin lack kinase activity, hence integrin mediated signal transduction is activated through a variety of intracellular protein kinase as well as the adapter molecules. They are the main coordinating being the integrin link kinase. So the integrin signaling exists in two places mainly. One is the integrin signaling in circulating blood cells as well as the non-circulating cells such as epithelial cells. So the important difference exists between the two is that the integrin of circulating cells normally it is inactive. For example, like cell membrane integrins or circulating leukocytes are maintained in an inactive state to avoid the epithelial cell attachment. They are activated only in response to the stimuli such as those received at the site of an inflammatory response. In a similar type, integrins at the cell membrane of circulating platelets are normally kept inactive to avoid thrombosis. So epithelial cells which are non-circulating normally have active integrins at their cell membrane, helping maintain their stable adhesion to underlying stromal cells as well to provide signal to maintain the normal functioning of the cells. Next, we'll talk about the toll-gate receptors. So, toll-like receptors, okay, so they are a class of protein that plays a key role in the innate immune system. So, TLRs are a type of pattern recognition receptors that is called PRR, and they recognize the molecules that are broadly shared by pathogens but distinguishable from the host molecules. Collectively, they are referred as a pathogen-associated molecular patterns or PAMPs. So next one will come to the ligand-gated ion channels. So the ligand-gated ion channels are called LGICs, are a group of transmembrane ion channel. They are the protein which open to allow ions such as sodium plus, potassium, calcium 2 plus or chloride minus to pass through the membrane in response to the binding of a chemical messenger. That nothing but a ligand such as neurotransmitter. So the ligand-gated ion channel upon binding with a ligand changes conformation to open a channel in the cell membrane through which ions can pass through and they can produce a signal. So here we can see this. So the example we have shown here are cellular synapse. So the influx of the ions that occurs in the response to the opening of these channels induces action potential. So such as those of travel along nerves by depolarizing the membrane of the postsynaptic cells, which will result in the opening of the voltage-gated ion channels. And ligand-gated ion channels are likely to be the major site at which that anesthetic agent, okay, or the ethanol have their effects. In particular, the GABA and NMDA receptors are affected by anesthetic agents. So this is all we have talked about the extracellular receptor. So now we'll talk about the intracellular receptor. So the intracellular receptors are the receptor which will be located inside the cell rather than on its cell membrane. So they will be not protruded in the cell membrane, they will be inside the cell. So the classic hormones that uses the intracellular receptor that will include thyroid or the steroid hormone, and like they are in lipid in nature, so they will be working as a intracellular mechanism. So examples for this intracellular receptor is class of nuclear receptor, which will be located in the cell nucleus and cytoplasm. So even though they will be not attached at the cell membrane at the outside the cell, but definitely those receptors will be working on the nucleus receptor. So IP3 receptor located on the endoplasmic reticulum. So the ligand that bind to them are usually intracellular second messenger like inositol triphosphate IP3 or extracellular lipophilic hormone like steroid hormones. So the activated nuclear receptor attached to the DNA at a receptor-specific hormone responsive element like HRD sequences located in the promoter region of the genes, which will be activated by hormone receptor complex. Due to their enabling gene transcription, they are alternatively called inductors of gene expression. So all hormones that act by regulation of the gene expression have two consequences in their mechanism of action. Their effects are produced after a characteristically long period of time, or their effects persist for another long period of time even after their concentration has been reduced to zero. So due to a relatively slow turnover of most enzymes and proteins, they would either deactivate or terminate ligand binding onto the receptor like thyroid. So now we'll talk about the signal transduction in bacteria. So we know that bacteria responds to the nutrients in its environment, including sugars and amino acids, by swimming towards them propelled by on or a few flagella. So when the attractant ligand binds to the receptor domain of the membrane-bound receptor, a protein his kinase in the cytosolic domain component 1 is activated and autophosphorylates a histidine residue. This phosphoryl group is then transferred to an aspartic acid residue on a component 2. In some cases, it will be separate protein, or in some cases, a receptor. So now we can see here that after phosphorylation, that component 2 moves to the base of the flagella. So where it reverses the direction of the rotation of the flagellar motor. And a two-component system have been detected in many other bacteria. Most we can see in the that gram-positive as well as the gram-negative bacteria, or even in archaea also, as well as in the protists and in fungi. So now we'll talk about the signal transduction in plants. So the like animals, that vascular plants must have a means of communication between the tissues to coordinate and direct growth and development, to adapt to conditions of oxygen, nutrients, light, temperature, and water availability, and to warn the presence of the noxious chemicals and damaging pathogens. So the movement will be either towards or it will be away based on the what type of stimulus is present. Okay, so it will maybe a chemo attractant or it may be a chemo repellent. So based on the signaling system will work. So the plant detect ethylene through a two-component system and a AMPK cascade. So the gaseous plant hormone ethylene, like CH2, which stimulate the ripening of the fruits. Okay, and it will act through the receptor that are related in the primary sequence to the receptor histidine kinase of the bacterial two-component system and probably evolved for them. So the signal transaction in plant, it will be look at this ethylene receptor in the endoplasmic reticulum is a two-component system. It will contain a signal protein with a receptor domain and a response regulator domain. So the receptor control the activity of the CTR1 and a protein kinase similar to the MAPKKS and therefore presumed to be a part of MAPK cascade. So as a whole, what we come to know from this signal transduction or the signaling pathway, the entire signal transduction system normally works astonishingly well, but the serious problems can occur. So it will be done very simultaneously, spontaneous process, but there will be problem can arise. Like cancer, we know that it is an unregulated cell growth, which occurs when the machinery type regulating cell growth breaks down. So what will happen in this, that the mutations in the growth factors receptor G protein, MAP kinase and other molecules frequently contribute to the cancer and generally result in the molecules losing their normal switching functions and staying in the inactivated form and therefore inappropriately stimulating their important enzyme cascade. So the complexity of the signaling system makes a challenging research, but it also has understood it holds the promises for better treatment for cancer and other diseases. So this is because each state in each pathway provides one or more targets for the drugs. So designing a drug that could provide the excess signaling caused by defective MAP kinase, for example, it may provide a promising cancer treatment, or it may provide only an outline of how the signal transduction cascade work and overview of a few of the most important enzymes. So the actual process is much more complex and there is much about the process that remain mysterious. So perhaps the biggest mystery is how the cell makes sense to all of the input from the different growth factors, hormones, extracellular substrates, and so on to produce an appropriate response. The solution of this problem will result from a complete understanding and computer modeling of the biochemical as well as the kinetic properties of the components of all these signaling